pepper wings. Lemon pepper wings. Lemon help! 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 Lemon pepper wings. Lemon pepper wings.
Hey guys, we're back with the launch of Midnight, just as it's about to go live with Season 1. This video is going to be my introduction to two types of series, where I'm both going to aim for Keystone Master, and we're going to be pucking in raids to torture ourselves and see how far we can actually get without an organized guild. We're going to be playing Preservation Evoker. It's known to be bad in Mythic Plus, but good in raids. We're starting off coming into week 2 with an item level of 229. Missing renown items and this week's Mythic Plus, so I guess this is where we're going this week. Talent wise, I just copied the one from Wowhead for a start. I might switch up some things now every now and again to see how it feels, or depending on affixes in the future. One of my favorite things about Evoker is their rescue ability. I'll make sure to have a lot of fun with this in the season and overload a few mentalities of poor teammates. This week starts off with a PvP quest awarding you with a hero ring or necklace, and I figured that was one of the best upgrades I could possibly get this week, so of course we're aiming for that. I do consider going in versus actual human beings, but I also don't want to get spanked by Peekaboo and Sario's spawn links for 1.5 hours, so we opt for beginner mode. We get ported to the mines of hard silver, and I immediately run out to secure the first mining cart, without any idea of what to actually do with it. The enemy then approaches to steal our well-earned hard silver, so we fight back in a way that could easily go down in history as one of the biggest slaughters of an enemy I've ever seen. However, the cart is calling me and I must answer. It was going on its journey, alone, frightened, so I decided to help it along the way. Only to realize that my team do need a healer if they want to survive this. So I took my goodbyes with the cart, promising it a safe journey, not knowing if that would be the case. As we fought, the cart rose again, majestic. I could feel the spirit calling to me, asking for assistance, and I had to help it along the way. When it was safe, I decided to test my potential 1v1 versus a rogue, who honestly didn't even glance at me before heading off to destroy my teammates. Dishonored in battle, I took my retreat to the rest of the team to let them know I single-handedly fought off a fierce fighter of the enemy. We of course won our first battleground. Not because we were playing against bots, but because of dedication, effort, and friendship. We also topped the meters for healing, and apparently cards controlled is a stat as well. Maybe even the most important one. We complete our first quest only to get nothing off the chest, except a little extra cash. So we hop straight into another battleground. We fought off the enemy and brought them back to their respawn, and was fighting stables for a solid 15 minutes without dying, to the point where my mana was getting kinda low and we were in trouble. It is, however, another W, and we topped the meters for healing. The last battleground seemed a lot like the fight we had at stables, except this one was way more epic, simply because it's happening on a bridge. How cool is that? But we're dominating once more, and of course top the meters by a landslide. Maybe I have the potential to become good at this PvP thing, at least versus bots. Now, all of our hard work should finally pay off, as we can deliver the quest to get our hero piece.
May we next meet?
I was confused as hell, looking everywhere to see where the ring or neck would be. I figured it must have been in my bag or noted in the chat. I even looked inside the tent for what seemed like 5 minutes to notice if they'd hidden it somewhere in there. I then took to Wowhead to figure out that apparently you have to do these PvP quests for another 3 weeks before you were able to get the hero piece. We then start clearing out the mythics, starting off with one I dare not pronounce here. We get onto the boss, which is a newcomer who hasn't read up on anything, is super confusing. Must have been why our dev evoker decided to log out and watch a guide before returning. I've now learned that you're supposed to walk into one of the traps when you're targeted with the charge, so that the birdie smashes a block of ice. Luckily, my class has a fuck your mechanic button. Our tank was then chosen to enter the Shadow Realm by not having anyone to share his fixate with. Fate wasn't with him, but I do end up with a nice new shiny sword. Moving on to the Veil of Braille. Here I was considering doing my commentary in Braille, but realizing you can't feel Braille through your screen, I decided to stick with using words. Considering the first boss is 3 lumen, they don't necessarily go light on you. We do end up with a new pair of shoulders and beat the next 2 bosses without any loot. The last boss I can already tell is going to be a fun experience for the whole family in Mythic Plus. The next dungeon I don't have a pun for, so let me know if you've got a good one in the comments. I did find this dungeon particularly hard for healers, or maybe the group just wasn't that coordinated. However, the looks and bosses I do really enjoy. I decided afterwards to grab myself a quick offhand to go with the new shiny sword I got by doing a world quest in Harrenir Land and also finally putting on the pants I received much earlier. We then went on to Windrunner Spire. I feel like the dungeons needs cooler names, but we'll come up with something eventually. I did start this one out like a bonobo and wasn't equipped with my healer spec, and I do end up paying the price for my mistake. I try and assist our tank by letting him know he's not pulling large enough groups by simply dragging him into enemy territory before he can get aggro. I get grilled by a large birdie, and we then move on to Latch and Callus, where I show off my dominant ability to DPS for about 1 second before landing at the bottom of the meters again. But damn, what a second to be alive. I continued my good streak by rescuing people, by placing them in front of their fears, almost to be vanquished by certain death, just for me to heal them like the hero I am. Next boss is a showcase of what Blizzard intended for arms to be like, but instead they decided to make that playstyle into a boss and demolish the arms spec instead. We do almost mess up by the end, by showcasing the fear ability that we're not afraid of wiping and securing the kill before it goes off. My homie do get a nice pair of hands, and I ask him if he could lend me one. He does so, and I show my gratitude through sensual virtual communication. With these new hands, I am now Midnight Superior, and I will let you know the secret. It's Steve.
Lemon pepper wings.
I once again get blew back by the boss and figure I tried my luck in the Arena of Scars, specifically Void. I see my warrior isn't really paying attention to the fight and decided he needed a quick lift by Preserved Airlines. He gives it a 1-star review, and I am determined to enhance his customer experience throughout the rest of the dungeon. By focusing on this one specific customer, I completely forget to ensure the rest of the passengers' safety as we get interrupted by what can only be counted as a Morgana binding in World of Warcraft. How is 6-second mass fear okay? The next boss must have enjoyed getting its ass kicked by me, because he did like Beyonce told him to and put a ring on it. However, I already had one and decided to let the less superior Midnighters gamble for it for my amusement. The warrior ended up winning, and hopefully he will keep that in mind when dropping a rating by the end of the journey.
Lemon pepper wings. Lemon pepper wings. Lemon help! 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 Lemon pepper wings.
He did laugh as he claimed I had touched him somewhere sacred. I've heard humor can hide traumatizing experiences, so good for him. I bid him farewell, knowing that the rest of the world still needed my assistance, but I will never forget Draktar from Frostmaw. Murder Row. Despite what you think is gonna happen, this is actually the place where I realized that my tremendous powers can also be used for the better of mankind.
Lemon pepper wings.
This is also where I realized that our warrior is permanently hitting the 99% damage reduction boss and thus doing less damage than me. Also that he's incapable of moving on his own, and I somehow get the feeling that this won't be the last time he dies in this instance. I then proceed to rock this floor harder than Lionel Richie would rock a job as a roofer. And of course we end up with a 5-star rating afterwards, earning what every freelance artist dreams of receiving after a long day's work.
You're getting excellent exposure from this.
We then proceed to beat up Gangplank. My team hasn't yet learned that you're not supposed to stack on the barrels though. I aim for my exit only to get scope. We beat up this man who's honestly doing nothing, so I had more than enough time to almost out DPS my Fury warrior. I thought Fury was supposed to be decent this batch, but this man sure didn't make it seem that way. The last boss of this dungeon, however, is a full-on raid boss. Who in their right mind figured it was okay to have a permanently fixated monstrosity chase after you the entire fight, while she spawns 3 caster minions for each player alive, hides away only to send a massive green nuke towards you that you can only escape by taking an alternate timeline portal to be the first person she targets it with a front-end Chaos Bolt missile. I do find a strat to counter the amount of ad spawning by letting the weaker links of the group die. On purpose, of course. And we get some well-deserved gold afterwards. I decided to leave the quest for custom slot gear here and level an ult while I do some reputation grind. So we do stop at around 239 eye level, seemingly in a decent place for when the season starts. I probably won't be sweating it too hard, since my main goal with this series is just to enjoy the process, but hey, if you sticked around to the end, you're amazing. Hope you enjoyed this, because I'll be sure to make more of it in the nearby future. So tag along the journey, and I'll make sure to see you again next time.